The night rain poured down on the city, as if determined to sweep away every sound and light. The dim yellow streetlights glowed onto the slick road, where puddles reflected the fleeting silhouettes of cars speeding by. The gas station at the corner of Reed Avenue had dimmed most of its lights, leaving only a few cold white bulbs flickering on a faulty sign. Madison Young sat motionless behind the wheel of her old Honda, her trembling hands gripping the steering wheel, as if letting go would cause her entire world to collapse. The car had stalled at the gas station for nearly half an hour, its engine finally dying with a despairing sigh. She turned the key several times, but there was only silence instead of the familiar rumble. "No, it can't be like this," Madison whispered, tears mingling with the raindrops streaking down her face. Tonight, she didn't have the strength to endure another blow. In her soaked jacket pocket, her old phone vibrated. 12:47 a.m. Tomorrow, or rather in just a few hours, she would officially be evicted from her rented apartment. The rent was 3 weeks overdue, and the landlord had run out of patience. Worse still, her younger sister Zoe was burning up with a fever alone in their rundown apartment. Madison had tried to get medicine from the nearby clinic yesterday, but without money for the copay, they'd coldly turned her away. The last of the old medicine was nearly gone, and Zoe was curled up on their creaky bed. Madison took a deep breath, trying to swallow the sobs rising in her throat. She had to do something. She had to call someone. In her phone's contact list, her blurred eyes landed on a familiar name, Derek, her ex-boyfriend. The man who once promised, "I'll always be there, if you ever really need me." They had broken up 6 months ago when he moved to Chicago to chase his career. Madison had tried to be strong, convincing herself she didn't need to rely on anyone. But now, surrounded by darkness and rain, she knew she was desperate. Her trembling finger dialed the number. For a moment, she wasn't even sure she'd pressed the correct digits. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" A male voice answered. But it wasn't Derek. This voice was deep, warm, and strangely comforting, like a small flame in the cold, rainy night. Madison flinched and checked her phone screen. She'd misdialed. Instead of a 4, her wet finger had hit a 7. "Sorry, I called the wrong number," she said quickly, about to hang up. But the man's voice came back firm and immediate. "Wait. Are you okay?" "You don't sound okay at all." Madison bit her lip. A stranger caring about her state in a moment like this? It was absurd, but his question struck at her most vulnerable point. "I'm fine," she whispered. But a soft sob betrayed her words. "No, you're not." His voice softened. "Where are you? Is it safe?" A moment of silence. Madison hesitated, but then the tears she'd held back burst forth. "My car broke down at a gas station. It's raining. It's past midnight. I don't know what to do anymore." Her voice cracked. On the other end, the man let out a soft breath as if trying to suppress his concern. "Listen to me. First, lock your car doors. Don't get out. My name's Henry. What's yours?" "Madison," she replied faintly, wiping her tears with her wet sleeve. "Madison." He repeated her name slowly, as if committing it to memory. "That's a beautiful name. Listen to me, Madison. You're not alone. I'll call someone to help. Just stay in the car." Madison gave a bitter laugh. "I don't have money for a tow truck. I can't even afford medicine for my sister. How could you help? We don't even know each other." Henry said some things don't require knowing each other. His voice calm but resolute. "I'll send my driver to pick you up. No charge. He's trustworthy, and I promise you'll be safe." Madison froze. In the middle of a rainy night, a stranger offering help with no strings attached. Her instincts told her this voice wasn't lying. It was so genuine that it made her want to believe. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why are you helping me?" There was a brief pause. Then Henry answered, "Because sometimes we all need someone to listen. And maybe because I need that right now too." His words left Madison speechless. For a moment, she forgot the storm outside. All that remained was Henry's warm voice, cutting through the darkness. 15 minutes later, a black car pulled up to the gas station. A middle-aged driver stepped out, offering a kind smile. "Miss Madison, I'm Marcus. Mr. Henry sent me to pick you up." Madison was stunned at a loss for words. She gathered a few belongings and got into the car. Marcus drove slowly through the flooded streets, her phone still connected to Henry. "Are you still there?" she asked. "Of course. I'll stay on until you're safely home." Madison didn't know why, but those words stirred something in her weary heart. When Marcus pulled up to her old apartment in Westbrook Heights, it was just past 1 in the morning. Madison hurried inside and found Zoe asleep on the couch, her breathing steadier. She let out a relieved sigh, then remembered she was still holding the phone. "Henry, I'm home. Thank you." "Knowing you're safe puts my mind at ease," Henry replied. There was something in his voice, not just relief, but a more profound, quieter emotion. Madison gripped the phone tightly. A stranger in the rainy night, a voice both unfamiliar and comforting. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight at least, she no longer felt alone. Outside the window, the rain continued to fall, but in Madison's heart, a small spark of light had ignited a light born from a call that was meant to be a mistake. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the tattered curtains, spilling into the small room. Madison opened her eyes, still reeling from the previous night's events. On the table, her phone buzzed softly, its screen lighting up with a now familiar unknown number, Henry. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Good morning, Madison. I just wanted to check. How's your sister doing?" The warmth in his voice caught her off guard, his concern almost too much for a stranger. Yet, in that moment, it eased her worries, if only slightly. "She's doing better. Her fever's gone down." "Thank you." A soft exhale came from the other end, as if he was genuinely relieved. "I'm glad to hear that. I know a doctor at Mercy Clinic. I can arrange for your sister to be seen without cost if you need." Madison froze. She didn't know how to respond. His offer was so kind that it made her wary of his true intentions. I don't even know you. You don't have to do this. Sometimes you accept help, Madison. Not every act of kindness comes with strings attached, Henry said slowly, each word carefully chosen. Madison fell silent, gripping the phone tightly. Questions swirled in her mind. Who was he? Why was he so kind? And most importantly, could she trust him? The day passed in a tug-of-war of emotions. Madison hurried to a small grocery store to buy cheap food. Her wallet held only a few crumpled bills. Standing before the medicine aisle, she lingered, trembling fingers brushing a box of cough syrup Zoe needed. But she pulled her hand back. It cost as much as a week's worth of meals for both of them. That afternoon, her phone buzzed again. Henry. She hadn't planned to answer, but her finger instinctively swiped the screen. Madison. Are you still okay? Okay. If you call choosing between medicine and food. Okay, I'm fine. She snapped bitterly, instantly regretting her harshness. But Henry paused briefly before responding gently. You don't have to put up a front. I'm not judging or pitying you. I want to listen. If you let me, I can share some of the burden. Madison clutched the phone, tears welling in her eyes. She hated feeling weak, but his voice unraveled her defenses. You don't understand. Everyone abandons me when things get tough. They only care when I have something to offer. When I have nothing, I become invisible. No, Henry said firmly. I understand. I've been there. When you lose someone you love, when the people around you only see your status. I've been invisible in my own world too. Madison paused. It was the first time he'd revealed anything about himself. Curiosity stirred, but she held back from asking more. That evening, with Zoe fast asleep, Madison sat alone on the rickety balcony. The city sparkled with lights, but it was all a blur to her. Her phone rang again. This time she answered immediately. "You're not asleep yet?" she asked. "Not yet. I'm rereading an old book. It's strange, but I wanted to share it with you." Henry began talking about a detective novel describing small details, the introspective dialogue of an aging detective reflecting on life. His voice was calm, steady, as if reading straight from the pages. Madison listened, her heart lightening. She realized it had been long since anyone had spoken to her like this. No pressure, no judgment, just a shared moment through words. "Henry," Madison interrupted softly. "Yes. Why are you doing all this for me? We've never even met." There was a long pause. Then he spoke, his voice slow and honest. "When you said that night in the rain, I heard myself in your voice, the exhaustion, the desperation, and that spark of resilience. I didn't want loneliness to swallow us both." Madison's heart ached, as if he'd touched its most hidden corner. She couldn't respond, only whispering, "Thank you." In the days that followed, Henry called regularly. Sometimes it was brief, a simple, "How's today?" or "Is Zoe feeling better?" But to Madison, those calls became the only bright spot in her exhausting days. One afternoon, after returning from a discount supermarket, the nearby auto shop called to say her car had been towed there and was being inspected. Madison was stunned she hadn't arranged it. Before she could ask more, her phone rang. "Madison, that was me. I had a friend look at your car. Don't worry, I'll cover the cost. You need it to get around." Why would you do that?" she stammered, flustered. "Because I want to help you. Don't owe me anything. Just let me hear your voice every day, that's enough." His words left her speechless, torn between protest and trust. A new, unfamiliar feeling crept in, warm, yet frightening. On Saturday night, with Zoe asleep, Madison sat on the balcony again. The city was noisy, but a rare calm settled in her heart. Her phone rang. "Madison, I'm here. I've been thinking. Maybe we should meet." Henry's voice was calm, but she caught a hint of anticipation. Her heart raced. Meet? What would that mean? Was he a con artist? Or some mysterious man with a complicated past? I'm not sure, she faltered. "No rush. When you're ready, tell me." "I'll wait," he replied gently. Madison smiled, a rare smile after months of hardship. There was no pressure in his voice, only patience, and that made her want to try trusting him. That night, Madison lay awake for hours. In her mind was the image of a man she'd never met, known only through his voice, who had become her emotional anchor. From a wrong number, everything had changed. She wondered, would Henry be like the voice that stirred her heart if they met? Or was it all an illusion, woven in the dark? In the small room, Zoe's steady breathing was a soothing sound. Madison clutched her phone, whispering, "Maybe I'll give him a chance." Henry stared at his phone across the city in a spacious room with glass walls overlooking a dazzling neon skyline. His heart felt a little less cold for the first time in months. Madison was grappling with a pile of overdue bills on Monday morning when her phone rang. The familiar name flashed on the screen, Henry. She hesitated for a few seconds before answering. Good morning, Madison. I have something to discuss with you. What is it? She sighed, her eyes still fixed on the red numbers screaming past due warnings. There's an opening at my friend's office. It's a simple administrative job that pays steadily and has a good work environment. If you're interested, I can put in a word. Madison froze. The offer sounded tempting, but it also stirred unease. Why was he so invested in her future? I'm not sure. If I take it, it'd feel like I'm taking advantage of you. Henry let out a soft, sincere chuckle. No, Madison. It's an opportunity you deserve. I'm just opening the door you decide whether to walk through. His words silenced her. She pressed her lips together, torn between gratitude and worry. But deep inside, a small spark of hope flickered. That afternoon, Madison received an email from a major financial firm scheduling an interview for the next day. She could hardly believe her eyes. Her only decent outfit was worn, but Zoe eagerly helped her iron it, even tying Madison's hair neatly with a ribbon. "You'll do great, sis," Zoe said, her eyes shining. "I believe in you." Madison nodded, her heart a mix of excitement and fear. On the interview day, the towering office building loomed before her, its glass facade reflecting the sky. Standing in the lobby, clutching her file, her heart pounded. In the interview room, she tried to keep her voice steady. The interviewer, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, asked basic questions about her skills, experience, and why she wanted the job. "I wish to be challenged," Madison replied, meeting her gaze. "I've handled paperwork and customer service before. I believe I can learn quickly and give my all." The woman nodded, jotting notes carefully. As the interview ended, she said something that made Madison exhale in relief. "We'll be in touch soon. You made a good impression." Madison stepped outside, feeling like a weight had lifted from her chest. That evening, back at the apartment, she called Henry. "I finished the interview." "How'd it go?" he asked, his voice full of care. "I think it went okay, but it's not certain yet." "Madison," he said slowly, "you did your best. That's what matters. I believe they'll see your true potential." His voice calmed her. Even without knowing the outcome, she felt less alone on this path. That night, Henry called again. They talked for hours, not just about the job, but about small things. He described a cozy cafe he'd stumbled upon, raving about its crispy toasted sandwich. Madison shared childhood memories of playing shop with Zoe in their old backyard. "Sometimes I wish life could stay as simple as those games," she sighed. "But if it had, you wouldn't be as strong as you are today," Henry replied. "Your resilience is something to be proud of." Madison fell silent. Her heart stirred in a way she couldn't explain. A week later, her phone rang. It wasn't Henry, but the woman from the interview. "Congratulations, Madison. You've been hired as an administrative assistant. Can you start next week?" Madison nearly dropped the phone. She nodded frantically, though no one could see. "Yes, of course. Thank you so much," Zoe squealed when she heard the news. The sisters hugged tightly, tears streaming down their faces in joy. That evening, Madison called Henry. "I got the job, Henry. I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned it yourself. I just made sure someone saw your potential." His voice was warm, as if he were smiling too. Madison's heart swelled with a mix of joy and unease. On her first day, she stepped into the sleek office, with its gleaming glass walls, trying to stay calm despite her nerves. Her new colleagues were friendly, and the work, though busy, wasn't overwhelming. While others went out at lunch, Madison organized papers at her desk. Her phone buzzed, a text from Henry. "How's day one?" She smiled, texting back. "Fine," trying not to mess things up. Seconds later, another message. "You'll do great. I believe in you." Her heart beat faster. She tucked the phone away, focusing on work, but the smile lingered. In the days that followed, Madison settled into the job. She worked diligently, asked questions when stuck, and finished tasks on schedule. Her colleagues began to respect her, and her boss offered praise. Each evening, Henry called. Their conversations took on a new depth, sharing and a growing bond. One night during a brief pause, Henry said softly, "Madison, I want you to know, I truly value your presence in my life." Her heart trembled. She didn't reply immediately, only whispering, "Maybe, I feel the same." But amid the new joy, a quiet worry lingered. She knew so little about Henry. He listened, cared, and helped, but revealed little about himself. Who was he? How could he arrange things so effortlessly? Late at night, lying beside a sleeping Zoe, Madison stared at the cracked ceiling. She wondered, was she placing her trust in someone too mysterious? If the truth came out one day, could she handle it? Outside, the city lights twinkled. Madison closed her eyes, whispering a prayer. Despite her fears, she knew one thing. Henry had become an indispensable part of her life since that fateful rainy night. That morning, Madison woke earlier than usual. Sunlight streamed through the worn window, illuminating the desk where her neatly stacked files lay. She had settled into the rhythm of her new job, but her thoughts kept drifting to her conversations with Henry. He texted or called regularly sometimes, just a brief greeting. Yet it was enough to stir her heart. His presence in her life had become a new habit, sweet but dangerous. Madison knew she was growing dependent on his familiar voice, which scared her. Late that afternoon, she received an unexpected text after work. "Your car's been serviced. It's fully paid for. The keys are at the front desk." She stared at the message, surprised. There was no signature, but she knew it was Henry. Everything he arranged was seamless, leaving her no room to worry. At the front desk, Madison held the polished keys, her gratitude mixed with a rising unease. Why would a man she only knew through phone calls go to such lengths for her? That evening back at the apartment, Madison sat on the balcony with Zoe. The girl nibbled on a sandwich, her eyes twinkling mischievously, as she asked, "Sis, are you crushing on someone?" Madison nearly dropped her glass. "What are you talking about?" "Come on. You smile at your phone all the time. Your eyes light up when it rings. I'm not blind, you know." Zoe smirked. Madison fell silent. She couldn't deny she'd changed. The weight of sadness and exhaustion had lightened because of Henry's calls. But how could she explain to her sister that the man was still a mystery? That night, Henry called. Madison answered after a moment's hesitation. "Madison, are you on the balcony? I can hear the wind." "You're a good guesser," she said softly, smiling. "You'd make a better detective than a financier." Henry chuckled, his low laugh like a warm note. Then, after a pause, he said, "I want to ask you something. If someone hides their true identity just to be heard without judgment, would you say they're wrong?" Madison's heart tightened. His question pierced the doubts lingering in her mind. She wanted to ask outright who he was, what he did, and how he could afford to help her so effortlessly. But her throat felt blocked. "It depends," she whispered. "If they're hiding to avoid being misjudged, maybe it's not wrong. But if they're hiding to manipulate someone, that's betrayal." Henry sighed. "I understand." Madison stayed quiet. In that moment, she realized their conversations were crossing a line into uncertain territory. Her heart wanted to trust, but her mind kept sounding alarms. A few days later, Madison was tasked with preparing documents for a significant meeting at the office. As she set up the conference room, she overheard colleagues whispering, "The boss hasn't shown up in months, only virtual meetings. But I hear he's coming back in person soon." "Yeah, he's super rich and famous too. The papers mention him a lot. They say he's brutal, but brilliant. Madison's curiosity piqued, but she didn't dare ask more. For a moment, her heart raced with an odd premonition. That evening, when Henry called, Madison decided to probe. "Henry, what do you really do for a living?" He laughed lightly. "I told you, finance stuff. Not very exciting." "Not exciting, but doctors and mechanics can arrange job interviews at big firms," she pressed. Henry went quiet. The prolonged silence made Madison's heart heavy. "Madison," he finally said, his voice low, "I'll be honest with you, but not yet. I want you to know I'm not trying to deceive you. I'm just afraid. If you see me like everyone else, we'll lose what's special between us." Madison gripped the phone. His words were sincere yet vague, stirring both trust and fear. That weekend, Madison was invited to a company charity gala. Colleagues buzzed with excitement, speculating whether the elusive boss would appear. Madison hesitated, unsure if she belonged, especially without a proper dress. When she mentioned it to Henry that evening, he said softly, "Go. You deserve to be there as much as anyone. I'll arrange something small to help you feel confident." The next day, a package arrived at her door. Inside was a simple yet elegant dress and perfectly fitted heels. Madison's hands trembled as she opened it. Her emotions tangled. A small card read, "Be yourself, Madison. Don't let anyone make you feel small. H." Tears welled in her eyes, but part of her tightened with the unanswered question, who was he? Madison stepped into the dazzlingly lit ballroom at the gala, feeling both proud and nervous. Colleagues greeted her warmly, some casting curious glances at her elegant dress. As the event began, murmurs spread. "The boss is here. He's finally shown up." Madison turned instinctively. The grand doors opened, and a tall man in a tailored gray suit stepped in. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a deep sadness. Madison froze, her heart pounding. His voice as he greeted the organizers was unmistakable. It was Henry. She gripped her glass tightly, her body trembling. All her doubts, all her unanswered questions. Now they had a clear answer. Henry wasn't just a stranger on the phone. He was the head of the company she worked for. In that moment, her heart shattered, a mix of betrayal and anger surging. He had hidden the truth. All the kindness and help had come from his position of power. Her glass shook, a few drops spilling over. Madison turned, trying to steady herself, but emotions raged inside. Could the connection from those calls in the dark remain intact now that the truth was exposed in this blinding light? The music in the ballroom swelled, melodic symphonies, blending with the lively chatter. But to Madison, it was all a distant hum. Her eyes were locked on the tall figure who had just entered. Henry. The man who called her every night, listened to her deepest pains, and offered comfort in her darkest moments. The man she believed was a kind stranger, a confidant in the shadows. Now he stood before her, no longer hidden under the opulent glow of the gala's chandeliers. Anger surged, forcing Madison to take a sharp breath to keep from dropping her wine glass. She didn't know whether to flee or confront him. Henry took a few steps, his gaze finding her. His eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and worry. He seemed about to speak for a moment, but the crowd's watchful eyes held him back. Madison turned away, her heart in turmoil. She didn't want to become the center of gossip. But then a hand gently touched her shoulder. "Madison." Henry's voice was low, hoarse, meant only for her. She spun around, meeting his gaze. "You lied to me." His face tightened, her accusation cutting deep. He tilted his head, gesturing for her to follow. Reluctantly, she trailed him to a quiet hallway. The ballroom doors closed, muffling the noise. They stood alone under the soft glow of wall sconces. Madison clenched her fists, steadying her voice. "So everything you did, it was because you could. You're the boss with power and money. Did you think I'd be grateful forever that I'd never find out?" Henry was silent for a moment before speaking slowly. "I hid who I was not to toy with you. I was afraid that if you knew, everything would change. You'd see me the way everyone else does." "Madison, I've never had anyone listen to me like you have." Tears welled in Madison's eyes, but she swallowed them back. "Did you ever think about how I'd feel I told you everything, trusted a stranger? Turns out you knew more about me than I did about you. That's not fair. That's betrayal." Henry stepped closer, his voice urgent. "I never looked down on you. I cherished every word, every pain you shared. That's why I didn't want my position to come between us. Madison, please believe me. Everything I said, every feeling I have for you is real." She shook her head, stepping back until she felt the cold wall. "How can I trust you now, Henry? This whole thing was built on a lie. Good intentions or not, you hid the truth." The air between them grew heavy. Henry lowered his head, his hands clenching. He seemed to wrestle with himself before looking up, his eyes resolute. "If I could do it over, I'd tell you the truth. But Madison, don't deny what we've had. Those long nights, talking laughter, and the times your voice trembled weren't illusions. You know that." Her heart ached. He was right. Those moments felt real. But the sting of his deception was raw, making forgiveness impossible for now. The hallway door opened. A few staff members glanced at them before hurrying away. Madison's face flushed. She didn't want to be seen like this. "Enough, Henry," she said, taking a deep breath. "I need time. Please leave me alone." Without waiting for a response, she strode toward the elevator. Henry didn't stop her, his eyes following her with quiet desperation. Madison sat in silence on the drive home, her thoughts a whirlwind. Marcus, the familiar driver, glanced at her through the rearview mirror, but said nothing until they reached her apartment. "Miss Madison," he said softly, "sometimes the truth doesn't come when we want it to. But some people, no matter what they hide, their hearts can't lie." She pressed her lips together, offering no reply. His words only deepened her confusion. That night, alone in her room, Madison stared at her phone. Missed calls from Henry lit up the screen. She set it face down, hugged her pillow, and let silent tears fall. Zoe woke in the middle of the night and saw her sister by the window. "Sis, what's wrong?" she asked gently. Madison shook her head. "I feel foolish. I trusted someone I should have questioned from the start. But you were happy talking to him, weren't you?" Zoe placed a hand on her shoulder. "That could be what's real." Madison turned, meeting her sister's clear eyes. She didn't know how to respond. In the following days, Madison buried herself in work. She ignored Henry's calls and texts, keeping herself busy to avoid thinking. But at night, in the quiet of her room, his image returned, his warm voice, his sincere words, and the sad look in his eyes when she pushed him away. One afternoon, Elaine, her manager, stopped by her desk. "Madison, I noticed you left the gala early. Everything okay?" Madison forced a smile. "Just tired." Elaine studied her as if seeing more than Madison let on. "Our boss isn't one to open up easily," she said quietly. "But when he lets someone in, it's not by chance." Madison froze, but quickly busied herself with papers, hiding her emotions. That weekend, her phone rang again. This time she answered. Henry's voice was hoarse, as if he'd been waiting forever. "Madison, I'm sorry. I know you need time, but please give me a chance to explain. Not at the office, not at a crowded event. Just us, somewhere quiet. I promise I'll tell you everything." Madison went still. Her heart wrestled between longing to hear him out and fear of being hurt again. "You can explain now," she said. "No," Henry replied firmly. I want to look into your eyes when I do. Because what I feel for you, Madison, it's never been just phone calls. She bit her lip. Part of her urged her to agree, while another warned it could be a mistake. I'll think about it, she said softly. If I agree, I'll call you. Henry sighed, but didn't push. I'll wait, however long it takes. When the call ended, Madison sat in a daze. Outside, the city glowed, cars streaming endlessly. She knew her next decision would shape their connection. Would she forgive, open her heart again, or close it forever, leaving Henry behind? On Saturday afternoon, the gray sky hinted at approaching rain. Madison sat by the window, her eyes fixed on her phone, where an unread message from Henry waited. His texts arrived with a steady rhythm, never pleading or blaming, just simple check-ins. She'd been silent for days, but his words were like pebbles dropped into a still lake, rippling through her resolve. Zoe returned from art class, and her sketchbook was smudged with pencil lead. She set it on the table and squinted at her sister. Is he still texting you? Madison didn't answer immediately. She twirled her phone and gave a slight nod. Zoe grinned, mischief in her eyes. Then it's obvious you want to see him. If you didn't, you'd have blocked his number by now. Her words pierced Madison's carefully built pride. She sighed, grasping her sister's hand. I'm scared, Zoe. Fearful of trusting the wrong person again. But how will you know what's true if you don't give him a chance? Zoe replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. That evening, Madison typed a brief message. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., the cafe on Maple Street. I want the truth. She hesitated before hitting send, her heart pounding. Part of her felt relieved, part trembled as if stepping into battle. The cafe on Maple Street was a quiet haven, tucked under old maple trees. Madison chose a corner table where soft yellow light spilled onto the worn wooden surface. Rain on the windows blended with gentle jazz, creating an intimate atmosphere. When the door opened, Henry walked in. He wore a simple shirt and dark jacket, far from the polished look of gala nights. His eyes searched the room, settling on her. Thank you for coming, he said softly, sitting across from her. Madison kept her voice steady. I'm here not to forgive. I want the truth. Henry nodded, his gaze unwavering. He set his phone aside, hands clasped as if to steady himself. I'll start with that night, he began. When you misdialed, I almost didn't answer. But your voice. I heard the pain in it, the same pain I've known. I couldn't hang up. Madison sat still, her heart stirring but her face cold. I lied about who I was. Henry continued. Not because I looked down on you, but because I was afraid. I've lost too much to people who only see my wealth and status. When you opened up, it felt precious. You didn't know who I was. He paused, taking a deep breath. The more we talked, the more I needed you. Your honesty reminded me I'm still human, not just a magazine name. Madison tilted her head, her voice low. You think saying that erases the deception I've fought every day to survive while you sat on your throne? Henry gave a sad smile. You're wrong. That throne is nothing but loneliness. I thought I controlled everything until I lost my mother, then my faith in love. You don't know this, Madison, but those nights hearing your voice were the first time I felt alive again. His raw honesty shook her. She wanted to stay distant, but part of her softened. They fell silent. A waiter brought 2 steaming coffees. Madison stirred hers, watching the dark swirls dissolve. What do you want now? She asked. Henry looked into her eyes, unflinching. I want to start over. I have no secrets. I want to be part of your life, not as a benefactor, but as a partner. Even if you say no, I'll keep helping because I can't ignore you and your sister struggling. Madison's heart tightened. She hated feeling like a charity case, but his resolute gaze made it hard to dismiss him. A gust of wind rattled the glass rain, pelting harder. Madison looked up, catching Henry watching her, his eyes holding pain and hope. She exhaled, speaking softly. "You know what I hate most? Feeling like someone's project to fix. If you want to be with me, you must prove you value me for who I am, not to fill your own void." Henry nodded instantly. "I'll prove it not with money or power, but with my heart." He placed a hand on his chest, his voice low. "Just give me a chance." Madison's gaze softened. She remembered their long nights talking, how he listened to every detail, shared his own losses. No one could fake that kind of vulnerability. "Okay," she said quietly. "One chance. If you let me down, there won't be another." Henry smiled a small, warm smile, as if spared from a death sentence. "I promise you won't regret it." They left in silence that night. Henry held the car door for her on the way, his eyes following her every step as if afraid she'd vanish. Back at the apartment, Zoe ran to greet her. Seeing Madison's quiet smile, she knew. "You gave him a chance, didn't you?" Madison ruffled her sister's hair, replying softly, "Just one, Zoe. We'll see if he's worth it." That night, Madison lay awake. The wound remained, but a faint spark of hope had ignited. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she didn't feel entirely alone. Outside, the rain had eased. A few stars twinkled faintly through thinning clouds. Madison smiled slightly, whispering, "Maybe mistakes can be the right beginnings." On Monday morning, Madison arrived at the office earlier than usual. The high-rise was quiet, her footsteps echoing on the polished marble floor. She settled at her desk immediately, avoiding unnecessary attention. Since meeting Henry at the cafe, her heart carried a new weight. She had given him a chance, but it meant risking her already wounded trust. At 9, Elaine stopped by, placing a stack of files on Madison's desk. "We have an important meeting with an international client today. I need you to help prepare the documents." Madison nodded, taking the task without question. The busyness was a balm, keeping her mind from replaying Henry's deep, searching eyes from that night. The meeting wrapped up by noon. As others left, Madison stayed to tidy up. She was organizing files when familiar footsteps paused at the door. "You did well," Henry said, his voice calm and steady. Madison looked up, her heart tightening. "Thank you," she replied curtly. He took a step closer, but kept a respectful distance. "I know words don't mean much now, so I'll show you with actions." She didn't respond, silently, packing the files and leaving the room. Henry didn't press, only leaving her with a resolute look. Madison froze at the sight before her that afternoon as she left the building. Zoe stood in the lobby, clutching a brand-new camera, her eyes sparkling joyfully. Beside her, Marcus, Henry's trusted driver, nodded warmly at the sisters. "Sis," said, "this is to help me pursue my passion, not a handout. He even got me into a professional photography class. Tuition's covered." Zoe beamed. Madison glanced at Marcus, her eyes wary. "Henry arranged all this, didn't he?" Marcus smiled kindly. "The boss wants the kid to have the right tools for her talent. He told me to clarify, this is an investment, not pity." Zoe hugged the camera, glowing with excitement. Madison didn't want to dampen her sister's joy, so she nodded, though her heart wrestled with conflicting emotions. That evening in their small apartment, Zoe fiddled with the camera's settings, while Madison stared at a new message from Henry. "I don't need thanks. I want to see you and Zoe smile." She set the phone down, sighing. He always knew how to reach the softest part of her heart. Elaine called Madison into her office the next day, handing her a thick project proposal. "Henry wants you on the new project team. It's a chance to step up. It won't be easy, But if you prove yourself, it could open doors. Madison's eyes widened. Why me? Elaine shrugged. He says he trusts you. The final choice is yours. You can say no if it feels like too much. Madison was silent for a long moment. She didn't want to be the subject of gossip labeled as favored because of her connection to the boss. But she couldn't deny this was a rare opportunity to prove her worth. She pressed her lips together and said, I'll do it. In the following days, Madison threw herself into work. The project demanded extensive research and late nights. Instead of feeling drained, she was fueled by determination to show the world and Henry that her place wasn't just the result of a wrong number. Henry stayed out of her way, watching quietly from a distance. When their paths crossed, he offered only a nod, no words. His restraint left Madison both unsettled and quietly grateful. One evening, returning late under pouring rain, Madison hurried from the parking lot to her building. There, under the awning, stood Henry, soaked but unfazed. "What are you doing here?" she asked, startled. He handed her a black umbrella, his voice low. "I knew you were bringing files home. It's raining. I didn't want you to struggle." She took the umbrella, her heart stirring. "You don't have to do these things." "I know," Henry said, his eyes earnest. "But I want to." In that moment, a small crack formed in the wall she'd built around her heart. Office rumors began to simmer. Some colleagues whispered that Madison was getting special treatment. Curious glances followed her. One afternoon, she overheard murmurs in the break room. Isn't it obvious the new project was handed to her right away? Clearly, it's because of the boss. Madison bit her lip, hurrying out. The suspicion stung. That afternoon, Elaine called her in. "Madison, I know you've heard the talk, but remember, success comes from results, not rumors. Prove yourself, and they'll have nothing to say." Madison nodded, her resolve hardening despite the ache in her chest. Zoe dragged her to Central Park that weekend to test the new camera. Zoe snapped photos eagerly, while Madison sat on a bench watching quietly. To her surprise, Henry appeared holding a steaming coffee. He handed it to her, saying softly, "You can hate me, but at least let me share afternoons like this." Madison hesitated, then took it. The warmth from the cup seeped into her hands, softening her heart. Zoe ran over, waving her camera. "Henry, be my model." He laughed, agreeing. He stood under a tree, his relaxed demeanor a rare sight. Madison watched, a strange sense of closeness stirring something she hadn't let herself acknowledge. As dusk fell, Henry walked them to the park gate. Before leaving, he said quietly, "Madison, don't let rumors make you doubt your heart." She stayed silent, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of emotion. That night, Madison lay awake. Images of Henry in the rain, his patient endurance of skeptical glances replayed in her mind. He was rebuilding her trust with every small act, and she was beginning to fear she might not have the strength to keep pushing him away. In the brightly lit office, Madison pored over the project plan. Today was critical. Not only was her team presenting to the board, but it was her first time leading as the coordinator. The door swung open. Elaine entered, accompanied by a tall woman with neatly tied blonde hair and eyes sharp as a blade. Madison knew instantly who she was. "Madison, this is Vanessa Rothwell." Elaine introduced, her voice slightly strained. "She's here representing a significant investment fund." The room's atmosphere grew heavy. Madison kept her expression calm, though her heart raced. Vanessa. The name she'd heard too often, the woman once close to Henry, a dark cloud looming over his relationships. Vanessa stepped forward, extending a hand with a faint smile. "So, we finally meet. I've heard a lot about you." Madison shook her hand coolly. "The pleasure's mine." Throughout the meeting, Vanessa's pointed questions cut deep, often straying beyond necessity. Madison answered patiently, but each query felt aimed at her, not the project. "Are you certain these figures are accurate?" Vanessa tilted her head, her tone mocking. Newcomers often make mistakes under pressure. Madison maintained her smile, presenting a stack of verified documents. "Everything's been triple-checked. I can provide the originals if needed." Elaine nodded approvingly, but Madison knew Vanessa's icy stare wasn't easily dispelled. Madison gathered her papers as the meeting ended, only to be stopped at the door. Vanessa stood there, her smile sharp. "You know I was once where you are. Thought I was special to Henry. But in the end, he's loyal only to his work and control. Trust me, you're just a fleeting name." Madison stiffened. "If you think I'll back down because of a few words, you're mistaken." Vanessa smirked, leaning close to whisper, "We'll see who's mistaken." That evening, Madison returned home heavy-hearted. Zoe spread photos across the table, eagerly showing off her first shots with the new camera. But Madison struggled to focus, Vanessa's cold voice echoing in her mind. Zoe noticed her sister's unease. "What's wrong?" "You look like you've been through a storm." Madison ruffled Zoe's hair, forcing a smile. "Just work." She didn't want to drag Zoe into this web of schemes, but deep down, she knew the storm named Vanessa was beginning. The next day, Madison received an anonymous email in her work inbox. Its malicious tone accused her of using personal connections to climb the project ladder, accompanied by a blurry photo of her and Henry leaving the cafe last weekend. Her heart sank. This was Vanessa's doing. If the rumor spread, her efforts to prove her worth would crumble. Elaine called her in immediately. "I trust you, Madison, but these rumors could hurt the project. You need to stay strong." Madison nodded, but her eyes stung with unshed tears as she left. Late that afternoon, Henry appeared at her desk, placing a new set of documents before her. "I know about the email," he said quietly. "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Madison looked up, anger flaring. "You can't always handle things. This is my reputation. I want to prove myself, not have you clear the way." Henry paused, then nodded. "All right, I'll stay back. But if you need me, say the word." Madison clenched her fists. She hated being seen as dependent, but Henry's steady presence eased her trembling. 2 days later, the company held a formal signing ceremony with the investment fund represented by Vanessa. In the conference hall, camera flashes lit up as reporters jostled for shots. Madison sat in the back, focused on taking notes. But Vanessa's eyes kept darting toward her, each glance laced with challenge. During the Q&A, a reporter stood abruptly. "There are rumors that some employees here are favored due to personal ties with leadership. Does this affect the project's transparency?" The room buzzed. Madison felt hundreds of eyes on her, her heart stopping. Henry rose, his voice commanding. "On behalf of the company, I assure you all roles are earned through merit. Madison Young has proven her worth with concrete results. Anyone who doubts this project's outcomes can look at it." The room fell silent. Madison stared at him, her heart a mix of shock and turmoil. He'd publicly defended her, risking accusations of bias. Vanessa sat still, her lips curling into a cold smile. The battle had clearly just begun. That night, Madison received an anonymous text. "If you want to keep Henry, meet me. I'll show you he's not what you think." No name, but Madison knew it was Vanessa. She sat in the dark, her phone trembling in her hand. Fear and determination surged within her. Did Vanessa hold some hidden truth about Henry? And did Madison have the courage to face it? The anonymous text glowed on Madison's phone screen. She sat motionless for a long time, her heart heavy. Ignoring it would mean living in doubt, letting Vanessa hold the upper hand. But agreeing to meet would mean stepping into dangerous territory, where every word could be a trap. Finally, She typed a brief reply. Where and when? Within seconds, a response came. Avalon Hotel, rooftop tea room. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. The next day dragged heavily. Madison worked mechanically, her mind taut like a bowstring. Zoe noticed something was off, repeatedly asking what was wrong, but Madison only ruffled her hair, deflecting with a forced smile. That evening, standing before the mirror, Madison told herself, I won't prove anything to Vanessa. I'm going to protect my trust in Henry. If there's a secret, I need to hear it myself. The Avalon Hotel stood grandly in the city's heart, its golden lights spilling from towering glass windows. Madison entered the lobby, her heart trembling, but her face composed. A concierge led her to a private elevator. The rooftop tea room appeared when the doors opened, with small tables near windows, overlooking the glittering city. Vanessa was already there, poised elegantly with a glass of wine shimmering. Seeing Madison, she smiled with veiled intent. You're braver than I thought. I figured you'd avoid me. Madison pulled out a chair and sat across from her, her voice steady. I'm here for the truth. Say what you have to say. Vanessa sipped her wine, her eyes glinting coldly. Do you know why I divorced Henry? People think it was my ambition, that I couldn't handle his coldness. But it's much more than that. Madison stayed silent, her gaze fixed on Vanessa. Henry has a dark side few know about. He hides things, controls everything. You think he cares about you? No. He's just filling a void with a new toy. When he's done, he'll discard you like he did me. Madison's heart tightened, but she suppressed her emotions. Why are you telling me this? To scare me into backing off. Vanessa shrugged. I'm warning you. You're young with a future ahead. Please don't waste it on someone who'll never truly value you. Madison met her eyes, her voice firm. If Henry's really the man you describe, why are you back? Someone who's moved on wouldn't bother tearing others down. The question caught Vanessa off guard. Her smile froze, but she quickly regained her sharpness. I'm not back for love. I'm back for power. And I won't let anyone else enter his world, not even you. Anger flared in Madison. She stood leaning on the table, her voice resolute. I'm not your rival in some power game. I don't care about Henry's money or status. I care about who he is. And if you try to sabotage us, I won't stand by quietly. The air thickened with tension. Vanessa narrowed her eyes, as if trying to read Madison's thoughts. Finally, she smirked. You're different from the others. But trust me, when Henry has to choose between work and you, it'll end the same as it did for me. Madison turned and left the tea room, her heart roiling. The city below sparkled, but inside her a dark fog loomed. One question gnawed at her. Was Vanessa telling even a shred of truth? Was Henry hiding something deeper? Back at the apartment, Zoe rushed to hug her. Where were you? I was worried. Madison held her sister tightly, tears threatening, but held back. I'm fine. I just realized that to be with Henry, I must be strong enough to face any storm. The next day, Madison arrived at the office with a colder than usual demeanor. Rumors still simmered, but she no longer shrank from them. She threw herself into work, completing reports with speed and precision that surprised her colleagues. Henry glanced at her during the afternoon meeting, his eyes tinged with worry. Madison gave a slight nod, a silent message. Don't interfere. Let me fight my own battles. Late that evening, as she drafted documents, her phone buzzed. A text from Henry. I know you're under pressure, but I need you to understand you're not a replacement. You mean more to me than anything I've ever had. Madison reread the message, her heart softening. Henry wasn't one for flowery words. If he wrote this, he meant it. But Vanessa's shadow lingered like a thorn, keeping her from complete peace. Madison sat by the window that night watching raindrops streak down the glass. Zoe slept soundly while Madison faced herself in silence. Vanessa can sow doubt, but only Henry can prove what's true. And I must be brave enough to hear it all, even the most painful parts. She picked up her phone and sent a brief message. We need to talk tomorrow. No secrets, no evasions. I want the whole truth. Henry replied almost instantly. I'll tell you everything. I don't want to lose you because of silence. Madison set the phone down and closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt she was stepping into the eye of the storm, where only two paths lay ahead, shattering apart or finding true light. On Friday afternoon, thick clouds blanketed the sky, and a sharp wind swept through the city's long streets. Madison strolled to the small lakeside cafe where she'd arranged to meet Henry for a final talk. Her heart felt heavy each step, pulling her toward an invisible trial. When she pushed open the door, Henry was already there. A steaming espresso sat untouched before him, his gaze fixed on the window until he saw her. His body tensed slightly. Madison sat down, her voice calm but cold. Tell me. I want to hear everything. Henry nodded, his hands clenching, then relaxing. He met her eyes, resolute, yet tinged with regret. I was wrong to hide who I was. But that wasn't the only lie. You deserve the whole truth. Madison waited in silence. My marriage to Vanessa Henry began, and his voice was steady but low. It didn't end just because of differences. It was an arrangement. Her family and my company were tied together. I married her to keep the peace, but there was never love. When she realized I couldn't give her my heart, she turned our marriage into a weapon. Divorce was inevitable. He paused, taking a deep breath. Vanessa didn't want love. She wanted power. And now she's back to reclaim what she thinks is hers. Madison frowned slightly. So I'm just a pawn in her new game. Henry shook his head, his eyes earnest. No, you've never been a pawn. You're the one thing that's made me feel human in years, not just a name in finance magazines. When you called that wrong number, I heard your trembling voice. It echoed my loneliness. I knew if I let that moment pass, I'd regret it forever. Madison's heart ached, but she kept her tone firm. You knew hiding the truth would hurt me. Why did you do it? Henry lowered his head. I was scared. Scared that if you knew who I was from the start, you'd see me like everyone else does, with calculation, suspicion, or flattery. I wanted to hold on to something real even in the dark. Madison sat still. Outside, rain began tapping the windows. She thought of their long nighttime talks, how he'd listened to every sigh, every pause. Those couldn't be fake. And Vanessa, she asked. She said you'll never value anyone, that I'll end up like her, abandoned for your work. Henry looked up, his eyes blazing. No, I lost once because I put work first. I won't make that mistake again. If I have to choose, I choose you. His words echoed in the quiet space, leaving Madison speechless, but doubt lingered. Can you really do that? She asked, her voice trembling. Do I not just say it to comfort me, but truly put me above everything? Henry stood, walked around the table, and knelt before her. The gesture stunned her. I used to think bowing to anyone was shameful, but for you, I can. Madison, I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for a chance to prove myself with my life. His eyes shone with a sincerity she couldn't ignore. Madison felt the walls around her heart tremble. She'd clung to her armor for days, but his gaze was breaking through. She sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. Henry, I don't need grand promises. Please prove it daily with your presence, not gifts or silent protection. Can you do that? Henry took her hand, his voice firm. I promise. In that moment, Madison stood at a crossroads. One path was pride, safe but lonely. The other was fragile trust, which was risky but potentially led to true happiness. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them, meeting his gaze. "All right, I'll give you one chance. If you betray me, there's no coming back." Henry nodded, a faint smile carrying deep relief. They lingered there, rain pouring outside. Words became unnecessary. Their shared glances spoke enough. As they left the cafe, Henry held an umbrella over Madison. They walked side by side, steps slow in the quiet street. She didn't feel led for the first time. She felt like his equal. Back home, Zoe waited on the sofa that evening, eyes sparkling with curiosity. What did he say? Madison smiled softly, sitting beside her. He told the truth. And I've decided to trust him one more time. Zoe hugged her, squealing with joy. I knew it. I always knew he was different. Madison ruffled her sister's hair, her heart easing. But she reminded herself, this trust is fragile, and I must be strong to hold on to it. Late that night, Madison opened the window, cool air rushing in. The city glowed, but a rare peace settled in her heart. Challenges lie ahead. Vanessa wouldn't stop. The office's prying eyes wouldn't fade. But this time, Madison wasn't alone. Henry had stepped out of the shadows, bringing his truth and promise. And for the first time in years, Madison dared to let her heart hope.